Hey, Frank and Arlo. It's Grandpop again. I'll talk to you about a couple things today. One of them is having a sense of humor. The other is how you look at life. And there'll be some other things thrown in here too. I was tasked a couple years ago with figuring out why I had the sense of humor that I do. And I have a pretty odd sense of humor, which, Frankie, you might know. Arlo, hopefully you'll get to find out in person. Well, whenever you look inside yourself to find out something about yourself, it's always good to look into the past and remember things that happened earlier in your life that'll give you clues to why you turned out the way that you did. And I thought, well, why did I laugh when I was younger? One reason that I laughed, and it was a major reason that I laughed a lot in my life, was because of my dad, Frank Clark. He is your great-grandfather, Clark, Tom and Frank's grandpa. And I remember even the last thing he said. He died when he was in his 80s. He died around the time that I married grandmother. In fact, he died within probably 2 weeks after I married grandmother in early 2002. And I remember he got sick and we had to take him to the hospital. And I knew that we weren't going to get good news at the hospital. But when we got there, he was awake and alert, and he wasn't at risk of dying just by not being hooked up to a machine or something like that. So they actually had him waiting in a hallway. He was in a hospital bed, and they had it raised up so that he could sit there and talk to me. But they didn't have a room to put him in, and they were waiting for the room to open up. And I went to do something, and I came back, and a doctor was there talking to him. And my dad said, "Well, you look really young. Are you sure you're a real doctor?" And the guy said, "I've been practicing for 5 years, sir." My dad said, "Well, I don't think I want somebody who's only practicing. I want somebody who actually knows how to do it." That was just about the last thing that I heard your great-grandpa Clark say. And I thought a lot about when I was a kid. He would tell stories about himself when he was younger. He told a story about when he was dating your Nana, your great-great-Nana Clark, my mom. And he was trying to impress her. They were in Wildwood, New Jersey, and Wildwood has like an amusement park out on the boardwalk. He wound up climbing to the top of the Ferris wheel. No, I'm sorry, I walked that back. The roller coaster. Be hard to climb to the top of a Ferris wheel because they could just keep spinning and make you come back down. But he actually climbed up the superstructure of the roller coaster, and the police came and he got locked up. I think there was alcohol involved. That runs in the family too. Should keep an eye on yourself to make sure it hasn't run down to you. My dad just wasn't afraid to make fun of himself. When he told a story about himself, it was usually a funny story, and he was by no means not going to be the hero. He would be the goat of a lot of the stories that he told. Another one was before I was born, And they were married, I think, 12 years before. And I'm the oldest of three boys. Your great uncle Richard is my younger brother. He's 7 years younger than me, but they also had a son named Lloyd Scott Clark. They called him Scotty. He was 5 years younger than me, and he died when he was 9 months old of pneumonia. But anyway, I digress. He told a story about driving to Stone Harbor, which is a place that my mom grew up going down there to visit her uncle. And her dad, your great, great, great Grandpop Weber, my Grandpop Weber, he was a big fisherman, and he loved Stone Harbor, and he would go to his brother's place, which was a restaurant called Weber's Hofbrau, German restaurant, I think around 107th and 3rd Avenue in Stone Harbor. It's not there anymore. But he was driving to the shore with my mom. They were not newlyweds, but I hadn't been born yet. They were pretty young. They had his brother Bill, which would be your, I think, great Uncle Bill, and his wife Madeline in the car. Back then, cars were a lot different. They had these back shelves. I used to get up on the back shelf and sleep on the way to Stone Harbor when we would drive down on a Friday night or drive home on a Sunday night when I was a little kid. That's how big they were. And you could store stuff back there. My Uncle Bill brought a watermelon, and he put it back on the back shelf. They were driving to the shore on some back road, but they were probably going 50 miles an hour. And somebody swerved over into their lane to avoid a head-on collision. My dad swerved to the right and went down an embankment into a field. And I forget exactly how they came to rest. They didn't hit a tree at 50 miles an hour or anything like that. But they abruptly came to a rest, and my dad hit his head on the steering wheel. And he put his hands on his head and started screaming, "No, my head, my head." And everybody in the car, even though they had just gone off the road, when they figured out they were okay and they looked at my dad, they started laughing. And he went like, "What the hell are you laughing at?" I'm like, "My head's bleeding." And they said, "No, it's not. You got hit in the head with a watermelon." So what happened was the watermelon came and hit him in the back of the head. And he was just so discombobulated by that he thought that he had fractured his skull and had blood squirting all over the place. Now, that's not a funny story, but when you heard him tell it, it was a funny story. When he told a story, he would start laughing. And sometimes it was uncontrollable laughter, and he just couldn't help himself. And when you were listening to the story, you would start laughing too. But my dad had a strange sense of humor. And that's kind of where I got a lot of my sense of humor from. Now, later in life, I got to witness his life. I didn't hear stories that he told about himself. I got to watch him live his life. And he was quite often very funny there too. He fell a lot as he got older, especially when he got up into his early 80s. But even before then, he would fall every once in a while. And he would always say, I'm okay. He would fall down. People would start freaking out. I'm okay. I know how to fall. and then we'd get him up and he'd be okay because apparently he knew how to fall. One time I remember we were in Stone Harbor, and your Aunt Courtney and grandmother, and this is probably, Aunt Courtney might have been 12 years old or something. It was probably before I married your grandmother. We saw Grandpop, my dad, pull up to the front of the house, and he got out of the car. He started to walk towards the door, and then your grandmom said, "I don't see your dad anymore. I wonder where he went. You should go out and see if he needs help with something." She assumed he walked around the side of the house to do something. And just as I was getting up to do that, we heard, "Oh no, Mr. Clark fell." It was our neighbors across the street. And they were going, "Hurry, get outside. Your dad fell. He looks like he's hurt." So we all went running out, and he said, "Look, stop the big fuss. I'm okay. I know how to fall." Probably the funniest time that he fell. We had an outdoor shower in Stone Harbor, and your great grandpa and great great grandpa and great nana lived there for a while, and I moved down there and brought my sons Tom and Frank, so your fathers. They were teenagers at the time, and I had this real long commute. In the beginning, we didn't even have a shower inside the house. So if it was wintertime, I would have to take a bath. We had one bathtub downstairs in my parents', next to my parents' room. There was a bathroom upstairs, but it had no kind of shower or tub or anything like that. It just was a toilet and sink. And eventually we put a shower in upstairs, but before then, if it was in the middle of the winter and the outdoor shower was turned off, I would have to take a bath, which takes forever. You guys have taken baths, but probably never since before you can remember, when your moms were giving you baths. But they take forever to do, and especially if you're getting ready for work or something. So whenever I could, I would use the outdoor shower. And one day, and this wasn't when, I was up at 4 a.m. getting ready to do this hellacious commute. This was just a regular day. I probably had come back from surfing, and I was getting washed off. I got done my shower, and I heard this weird sound, like outside of the shower, and I walked out. It was in the back of the house in Stone Harbor, kind of close to the back door. And in between the steps going up to the back door and the tool shed that we had was where the trash can was kept. And I heard the sound coming from the area of the trash can. And when I looked over, I saw your great-great-grandpop's legs sticking out of the trash can, going like this. And he was going like, "I'm stuck in the trash can. I'm stuck in the trash can." And he, luckily it wasn't like really nasty garbage in there or anything. So he couldn't get the thing over. It was stuck between another can and the step and the house, and he couldn't get enough momentum in the one direction to flip the thing over so he could get out. So I helped get him out of there, and I said, "Are you okay?" And you're not going to guess what he said. "Hey, I know how to fall. I'm okay." So anyway, a few months ago, I was jogging on the beach in Jacksonville Beach, where we live now. And when I'm jogging on the beach, in the background, you can hear chariots of fire. Bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 bum. And I'm flying down the beach, very light-footed, at an amazing speed. But that's just what's going on in my head. What everybody else sees is this fat blob waddling down the beach, breathing very hard. And this was a 68-year-old fat blob. In my mind, I'm still 17 years old and indestructible. But in reality, I'm not. So I was about maybe 2 blocks from 22nd Avenue South, which is where we live. In the last couple blocks, I like to kick it into high gear, finish with a kick. So I did that. And I was flying along, and all of a sudden, my foot got caught somehow in the sand, and I launched into the air, made this spectacular arc, and went bam, and face planted right in the sand. My glasses went flying off. I had a mouthful of sand. My head was all scraped up. My hat was gone. And I did this right in front of a whole group of maybe 20 or 25 college students. And I thought that they were going to go, like, hey, look at that guy fell. But they didn't. They went, oh my God, look at that old guy just face planted in the sand. Are you okay? Are you okay? And I got up and said, yeah, I know how to fall. And I know that your great-great-grandpop was looking down on me from heaven going, I taught him that. Talk to you next time.